Alright students, we have till now covered how the reactions are generated for different types of stimuluses, okay, and the things that we have discussed is how the chain mechanism is. So the stimulus is passed on from the receptor muscles, or rather the receptor organs, and they go to the spinal cord. From the spinal cord it is passed on through relay neurons to the muscles which are concerned with the movement, to the motor neurons, and these motor neurons impact the muscle cells. Now when we talk about the effector muscles, these are effector muscles, which means the ones which will contract or expand as per the situation. So when I am stepping myself accidentally on something which is pricky or on something which has a sharp edge, I will immediately remove my feet away from it, okay. So it means that there is a contraction in the muscles of my thighs or the muscles of my feet, okay. Similarly, when I happen to touch a very hot object, I will pull off my hand immediately from it, which means that there is a contraction in the muscles of my hands, okay. So these are the effector muscles. Now how do these work? Effector muscles cause the action or the movement which is required in response to the stimulus, okay. So in response to stimulus, they cause the movement, okay. So muscles are what? Muscles are made up of muscle cells, okay. So all types of muscles that we have in our body are basically made up of muscle cells, okay. Now these are basically made up of special proteins and can change their arrangement when stimulated by electrical impulses, okay. So muscle cells are basically made up of special proteins. These are a special set of proteins and they can change their arrangement, okay. These special cells can actually change their arrangement when stimulated by electrical impulses, when they are stimulated by electrical impulses, causing muscle cells to change their shape and contract, causing the muscle cells to change their shape and contract, okay. So these are electrical impulses which are generated and which will cause the muscle cells to change their shape and contract, okay. So muscle cells contract and muscles also contract and pull the bones of the body part and make it move, okay. So this is a contraction that happening and it is getting pulled off. So these electrical impulses which are reaching our muscle cells from where? From the spinal cord through the relay neurons and through the motor nerves, okay. So causing the muscle cells to change their shape. They are made up of special proteins and these special proteins are stimulated by electrical impulses. So there is a stimulation that is generated, there is a response, and there is a stimulation which is generated which causes the muscle cells to change their arrangement. These proteins can basically change their arrangement, and when they change their arrangement, a contraction happens, and the moment a contraction happens, the bone is pulled back, or also contract and pull the bones of the body part and make it move. So that's how the movement happens. Contraction of muscles or muscle cells caused by the action of electrical impulses is a reversible process. This is something that we need to understand. So if I move my hands, it will not be a permanent movement, okay. It will just be a temporary movement to avoid the damage that could have happened, okay. So it is just a temporary movement. It's a reversible process. Again, I will be able to elongate my hands, okay. So again, there can be an elongation. So just as there is a contraction, there is a corresponding elongation that can also be produced, okay. So corresponding contraction and elongation, it happens, okay. So it is a reversible process. It's not a permanent process. It's a reversible process. So this was about how we respond by our effector muscles. So the coordination is complete between the receptor and the effector organs, okay. So effector organs are the muscles which we contract. Automatically that happens, okay. So the autonomous nervous system. Now what is this autonomous nervous system? So as we have studied, it is a part of the peripheral nervous system. Now self-governing nervous system. Auto means self, okay. Auto means self. So if we say that a vehicle is auto start, okay, which means that it can automatically start by just by the movement of the keys. So self-governing nervous system, it is a part of the peripheral nervous system which controls the activities of the organs inside our body, which controls the activities of our organs inside the body without us even thinking about them, without us even thinking about them. So we are not consciously thinking about it, and still it is getting controlled. So that's how autonomous system works. So it basically controls the organs which are within our body, which are without we even thinking consciously about it. That is how it is getting controlled. Okay, so you can take a snapshot of the same, while we will be in detail study about the autonomous nervous system, smooth muscles of the various internal organs of the human body. Okay, so this is an automatic nervous system, which means that there is no influence. One second, let me adjust my camera a little. Okay, so the autonomous nervous system, as the name itself suggests, auto. Okay, so it's an autonomous nervous system. It acts on its own. Okay, so it acts on its own. The nerves of the autonomous nervous system are attached to the smooth muscles of the various internal organs of the human body. Okay, like we have the head, the heart, the blood vessels, the alimentary canal, the lungs, kidneys, urinary bladder, glands and skin, etc. All these are attached to the smooth muscles. We do not control their functioning. It is automatically controlled by the autonomous nervous system. The heartbeat, we do not control it. Even when we are sleeping, the heart is beating. Even when we are sleeping, absolute sleep mode, then also our kidneys are functioning, the brain is functioning, the circulatory system is doing its own work, the respiratory system, the lungs are functioning. So all these are functioning on their own. So they are not operated by our own conscious will. There is a autonomous process. It is automatic process. Okay, urinary bladder, glands and skin, etc. all these are autonomous nervous system. The autonomous nervous system controls and regulates the functions of the internal organs of our body involuntarily on its own. Okay, now a question may arise that in certain parts, let's say urinary bladder, are we able to consciously control the impulse to eject urine? Yes, we can, to an extent. Okay, see, when the urinary bladder starts filling up, then we get an impulse to eject it out of our body. Okay, through our organs. Okay, through our urinary organs, we get an impulse to eject it. So this can be controlled for a while, not beyond that. If the urinary bladder is filled and we are not urinating, then this will automatically eject out. Okay, so this is again an autonomous process. To an extent, there is an influence for us to eject it. Okay, however, it functions on its own. It is not getting filled by our conscious will. It is getting filled on its own. Okay, the impulse to eject it might be a little influence from the brain, or might be a little controlled by our conscious will. Okay, this develops with age. For example, small babies, they use diapers because they cannot control it. So this instinct to actually eject it out develops after certain age. Okay, so that's how the urinary bladder is, urinary glands and skin. So the autonomous nervous system controls and regulates the functions of the internal organs. All these internal organs, their functionality is not controlled by our direct will. They are controlled by the autonomous nervous system. Okay, and as the name suggests, it works on its own. Now, what is voluntary nervous system? It helps us take voluntary actions which are under the conscious control of the brain. So this is a voluntary nervous system which helps us. Oh my God, this is getting stuck. So the voluntary nervous system, which is also known as the VNS, okay, it helps us take voluntary actions which are under the conscious control of the brain. Voluntary actions, as the name itself suggests, voluntary actions, which means that they are done by our own will. Okay, our conscious will is involved in performing these actions. For example, when you are reading, okay, as a student, the action of reading, the action of writing, okay, as a student, all these are voluntary actions. Playing football, that's also a voluntary action. Playing football, that's also a voluntary action. Playing cricket, playing any form of sport, that's a voluntary action. You will have to run in a particular way. You will have to take stands in a particular way. You will have to perform in a particular way. Dancing, okay, dancing also is an example of voluntary action. And voluntary nervous system controls it automatically. For example, if you are, if you have a watch and you are going to school by walking or by cycling, whatever ways you are going, okay, so you are responsible for going to school by your own. I mean, there's no bus or no car which is taking you there, but you are controlling the speed. For example, your walking speed, or for example, your cycling speed, you are controlling it. Now, what happens? You look at the watch and you see that it's already time. Okay, you can actually, your brain can actually sense it out that there is this amount of distance that needs to be covered, and maybe the amount of time is going less with the speed with which you are walking. So automatically you will see that your speed increases. Okay, your speed increases. So how does this happen? Your brain recognizes there is a conscious will, there is a thinking that is involved, that so much distance has to be covered in the amount of time which is left. So we have to increase our speed. So automatically the muscles of your legs and your entire body, the speed increases. Okay, so the reflexes are passed on to the motor neurons of our leg cells and the muscles, and then we automatically start walking faster. So start walking faster because there is hardly an amount of time left. Okay, for example, when you play football, okay, so you have seen that players, when they get very close to the opposite goal post, their speed increases. Okay, they have to work very fast because there is a defense team which is against them. So within a fraction of a second, they have to, when they are somewhere in the midfield, they keep on passing the ball to each other, but the moment they come to close to the goal post, their speed increases. Okay, so that's how it happens. For example, in cricket as well, when you see that there are a huge amount of runs that are required in a very small amount of balls that are left, or very less amount of overs that are left, so the batsman goes in a offensive mode. The batsman actually tries to hit sixes and fours so that can be covered. Major amount of runs are required in lesser number of balls. So these are actions in which our voluntary will is, or conscious will is involved. Okay, I hope this makes it clear. The autonomous nervous system, as the name itself suggests, it's very easy to remember this, because auto means on its own. Okay, and voluntary means wherein our conscious will is involved. Voluntary means our conscious will is involved. Okay, so we are involved there. There is a thinking process that is involved. Okay, so I hope this is clear. You can take a snapshot of the same. Alright, so we have here the central nervous system, which is basically made up of the brain and the spinal cord. So what we were dealing till now is various types of nervous system, and we have seen that there is a spinal cord which generates reflex actions. Okay, now there are certain reflex actions which will involve thinking. Okay, and that's when the brain comes in. Okay, so it consists, these reflex actions are also actions which are generated on the basis of the stimulus which the receptors are receiving, and this is also a response, but it consists of the brain and the spinal cord. Both are involved here. So here thinking is involved. Okay, we will consider an example. First we will consider the theory part, and then we will refresh it with an example. Okay, so responsible for the coordination and control of the activity of the nervous system. So this is responsible for the control and coordination of the various activities of the nervous system. This is the central nervous system, like it's the main office for all types of responses which are generated. In this one, there is a thinking process that is involved in the response that we are generating for a stimulus that is happening in an environment. Okay, so CNS, basically central nervous system, directs the incoming messages to the motor neurons. It directs the incoming messages to the motor neurons, which will respond to a stimulus. Okay, they will respond to a stimulus. Motor neurons, we all know what they are. They are the muscle cells, okay, which will respond to a particular stimulus. CNS is involved in complicated responses. So CNS, basically the central nervous system, is involved in complicated responses. It enables us to give a more appropriate and intelligent response to various situations. It enables us to give the more appropriate as well as an intelligent response to various situations. So we will have to have a thinking process involved here. Okay, by using CNS, a person can vary his behavior according to the changing situations. So the response can be variable. Okay, CNS collects, central nervous system collects all the information from various receptors. These messages, okay, these messages are added and then the appropriate response, which involves intelligent thinking, is generated. The appropriate response is generated and it is passed on. Let's say for an example, let me take an example here. So so let's say this is a plate. Okay, it was kept on the table. I have just picked it up and it contains food which is a little on a hotter side, not very hot, okay, that it can burn our fingers, but it is hot and it has food in it and it is made up of crockeries. So if I see what could be their immediate response, the receptors take in that this is very hot. So will I drop it? If I drop it, then what will happen? Obviously the plate will break, the food will get spread out, and so this is not an effective response. Our brain will think about it. I have just picked up the plate without understanding the degree of hotness of the plate. So I will not drop it, I will rather keep it. Okay, the closest place, the table or the chair, whichever I find, wherein I can safely keep this plate, I will quickly keep it there. So here there is an intelligent thinking that is involved. Okay, the brain collects the messages that this is hot and this is not appropriate for the hand. It will burn off our hands. But will I drop it? In that case, the food will be destroyed, the plate will be destroyed as well. So I might as well keep it somewhere. So I will find the most nearby place wherein I can safely keep it. So there is an intelligent thinking that is involved. So the immediate response could have been that I drop the plate. But understanding the circumstance, I will keep it safely somewhere. So there is an intelligent thinking that is involved, and that is what the central nervous system does. Okay, so it generates the most appropriate response. Response can be just dropping the plate, but will it be the most appropriate response? No. The most appropriate response is I keep it somewhere wherein I will not destroy the food, I will not destroy the plate, and I will safely put my hands away from it as well. Okay, I will keep my hands safe as well. My hands are not getting burnt as well. So these are certain appropriate responses that are generated. Okay, so central nervous system behaves in an intelligent, generates an intelligent and appropriate response to a particular set of circumstances. Okay, I hope this is clear. You can take a snapshot of the same. Alright, so slowly and gradually we will now move on to the main organ of our nervous system, and that's basically the brain. Okay, so brain, what is the brain? So this is the diagram of a brain, the human brain. We have different parts of it. We have the cerebrum part, we have the forebrain, then we have the midbrain, the medulla. The midbrain is basically this part. The hindbrain, which is basically the back part, is made up of these things, that is the cerebellum, the medulla and the pons. Okay, and then we have the spinal cord, which is emerging from here. Then we have the pituitary gland, one of the very important glands which is there. Then we have the hypothalamus. These are very important parts of the brain, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. So this is the cerebellum, then this is the hindbrain. So this is basically the entire structure of the brain. We will understand it in bits and pieces. First of all, we will understand what is the brain. Brain, the highest coordinating center in the body. This is the highest coordinating center. Okay, there is nothing more powerful than the brain itself as a coordinating center of the brain. So brain is the highest coordinating center of the body. Where is it located? It is located inside the skull. Okay, we have the skull here, which is, and the brain is located inside it. It is protected by a bony box. Okay, and this bony box is basically known as the cranium. If you see here, this is the bony box. Okay, and this is the cranium part. That's the reason we call it cranial nerves. The nerves which are located inside the head of our human body is basically are basically cranial nerves. They are connected to the sensory organs like tongue, eyes, ears, nose, etc. Okay, so this is the cranium, and this is the bony box which is there. Okay, surrounded by three membranes called meninges. there are three membranes called meninges. These membranes are what? Which help to protect it. Okay, they basically protect the brain itself. Okay, the space between the membranes or meninges is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. Many a times you will get this short form CSF. Okay, CSF is basically the cerebral spinal fluid, which is also known as, it actually prevents the brain from mechanical shocks. See, if you have seen a helmet, okay, a helmet has a cushion like structure. It is hard from outside and has a cushion like structure. So what is the purpose of putting that cushion out there? It reduces the shocks. Okay, so cushions basically reduce the shock. So if a person happens to fall down and bang his head on the road or any substance or any hard object, there's a high possibility of the damage happening to his skull. So that cushion part reduces the shocking effect, the mechanical shocks. In the same way, inside our brains we have these meninges which are filled with cerebrospinal fluid. The short form of this is CSF. In your textbooks or wherever you are reading it from, in reference books as well, it is mentioned as CSF, that is cerebrospinal fluid. It protects the brain from mechanical shocks. That it protects the brain from any kind of mechanical shocks that might happen. Okay, so it's like that cushion part of the helmet. Meninges is basically the cushion part of the helmet. At times there is a disease called meningitis and people get infected from it. There is a vaccination available for meningitis and we should all take that vaccination. It depends whenever you want to take it, but meningitis is when that part gets filled with water, and you know that can be a fatal disease as well. People can actually go into coma and lose their lives as well. So we should be aware of this thing. Okay, so meninges is basically containing the cerebrospinal fluid which prevents the brain from mechanical shocks. So this is the structure of the brain, and we are going to study in detail about all the parts that are labeled here, and we will also study how the coordination of the brain, which is the main controlling or coordinating organ of our body, how it controls effectively all the organs of the body. Okay, so you can take a snapshot of the same. Okay, so we have here the brain. Now we'll understand the various portions of the brain along with their functions as well. So the brain is basically divided into three main regions. The first part is the forebrain. See, four limbs. So, you know, the front part of the brain is basically the forebrain. Okay, so the forebrain, then we have the mid part, the midbrain, and then we have the hindbrain. Okay, so just as we have in our body the four limbs and the hind limbs. Okay, the front part, the first part that comes is the forebrain, then we have the midbrain, and then we have the hindbrain. Okay, so the forebrain basically it consists of mainly of the cerebrum. So if you see the forebrain here, this is the forebrain. Okay, the entire folded structure that you see here, if you watch in videos, you will see that the pinkish part that you see here, it is called the cerebrum. Okay, this is called basically the cerebrum. The forebrain consists of mainly of the cerebrum. The midbrain does not have further divisions. If you look at the midbrain, this does not have any further divisions. The hindbrain, okay, the hindbrain consists of three main divisions: the pons, the cerebellum, and the medulla. So it consists of the pons, it consists of the cerebellum, and it consists of the medulla as well. So this is the hindbrain that contains. Okay, so this is the basic structure of a brain. Okay, this is the forebrain part, then we have the midbrain part, and then we have the hindbrain. So the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. The forebrain basically consists mainly of the cerebrum. Okay, the midbrain does not have any further divisions. Okay, but the hindbrain can be divided into pons, cerebellum, and the medulla. Okay, now we will try to understand their functions and their roles that they play in the coordination. Okay, you can take a snapshot of the same.